Anyone who's been to Newport recently? All right. Well, just want to share with you, I am a South Virginia University alumnus. I graduated from South Virginia in 1999 with American Studies major. So Newport, it was like Disney World to me. I was going to school amongst all the tourism, all surrounded by it. So I might as well share that experience with you, along with all the mansions and all the must-sees and all the must-dos that Newport has to offer. Okay, now I refer to this presentation as a city built to entertain, educate, and inspire for a number of reasons. Entertain, because there is so much to see, so much to experience. There's lots of new things coming up in Newport. The Opera House Theater in downtown Newport will be fully restored to its original beauty this coming December to celebrate its 150th anniversary. So that's coming up, and there's always lots of other events going on around the entire calendar up in Newport. Lots of yearly events. I'll share some of those with you as well. Educate. You have South Virginia University, but besides it being a college, besides that experience, there's a couple of important things I want to share with you about South Virginia on how it's intertwined with the historic nature in Newport, since it's well enveloped by the mansions and the historic district that it finds itself in. Inspire. Each and every time you visit South Virginia or even the Newport area, each and every time you visit and every time you leave, you want to see something else when you go back. Okay? That's Newport itself just leaves you in awe how people lived back in the day, and even how people today, how they look back at those days, and they also use the history of Newport to inspire them, their daily lives. So Newport is just a time capsule, a living time capsule. So I'm going to share that with you as well. Okay, moving on. What's happening here? Okay, well, about me. As I said, I'm a South Virginia graduate, class of 1999, majored in American Studies. My minors were in special ed and theater arts. I'm a travel writer since 2011, a travel lecturer since February of 2015. I've also been a guest on Cruise Radio. They're based out of Jacksonville, Florida. Their host is Doug Parker. I have spoken with him on the air many times about these presentations, even about cruising and other travel topics included. So I've had the opportunity to share all my knowledge with him on the air. Some of my Newport favorites, even from my college years, even to this point. Oka Court, that is the main building for South Virginia University. I will talk about that mansion at some point. The Breakers, one of the most iconic mansions in all of Newport. I will cover that. The Elms, well, there's a lot of important info about that place. The Marble House, which is very well connected to the Breakers, the family that built the Marble House and the Breakers, all are in the same family tree. The Opera House Theater, I will show some slides of that on what the place looked like back in the day and what they are hoping to make it look like come December when they have it fully restored. Brick Alley Pub and Restaurant, one of the best restaurants in Newport, best menu in town. I will show you more restaurant choices as I finish up today. And my favorite store in Newport, if you like tchotchkes and novelties, if you want to have the perfect memento of your visit to Newport on any occasion, Scrimshaw has just about every little tchotchke and novelty you're looking for. So right next door to Brick Alley Pub. So if you are waiting for a table to come available, that's a good place to hang out, good place to check out. But this quotation right at the very bottom comes from my former professor from my freshman year, Sister Paulette's son, Susie. My freshman year, she died suddenly at the end of October of 1995. And just before we began class, she had announced to us that she had arranged for a tour of the school library, so that everybody knows what to do and where to go and who to speak with. So when she was telling us all the details, she said, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, always be your very best self possible. So I take those words with me to this very day. So even though I only had it for 2 months, that was a very important lesson I learned from her. Tough grader, but tough teachers make us better people too. So that's more about me there. Newport at a glance. Just as a start, it was first founded in the year 1639. Its founders and very first officers were Nicholas Easton. There's a beach in Newport called Easton's Beach, or First Beach, technically known as. William Coddington, John Clark, John Coggeshall. There's a street in Newport named after him as well. William Brenton, Jeremy Clark, Thomas Hazard, and Henry Bull. In the year 1663, the colony of Rhode Island and Providence plantations received its very first royal charter, and Benedict Arnold was elected the very first governor. This is before Providence became the official capital. Well, Newport has one of the highest concentrations of colonial homes in the nation, in the downtown Newport Historic District, and Newport has 3 historic districts in one. You have the mansions, you have the downtown area, and you also have the wharf area, which has a lot of history to itself, where Fort Adams is located. So it's a huge, expansive area that we're talking about. And Newport, definitely, without a doubt, is a history buffs type of town. Everywhere you go in Newport, there is history all around you. And if you're into history, whatever type it may be, it's all there. And you cannot get enough of it. So that's Newport at first glance. Speaking of sailing, speaking of official recreational activity, Newport is the sailing capital of the U.S. And especially during the summer and during the fall, you will see sailboats and sail vessels galore in Newport Harbor in Narragansett Bay. Right here on that right-hand picture, that is the Coast Guard Eagle, based out of New London. That's the Coast Guard's vessel for the cadets. Okay, and that is one of the sailing classes. That's Salve Regina's sailing team doing their practice drills. So I was able to get that photo from them. Okay. Also, just to share with you, I work with the cruise lines part-time in the New York area, in Bayonne and Manhattan. And during the fall, 5 of our ships in the area sail to Newport and to New England and Canada during the fall. So 5 of our vessels stop in Newport as part of their ports of call. So when you sail into Newport Harbor and Narragansett Bay, it's a welcoming sight to see the Newport Bridge right in the background and to see just the town right in the background. It's just awe-inspiring to see that from the ship itself. So that's the whole sailing culture of Newport right there, right up front. The Newport Bridge. This is New England's longest suspension bridge, built in the June of 1969, $54 million to build. Just $54 million, that's $1969 now. If you built that bridge now, 2017, that would cost billions. Okay, that bridge is more than a mile long, stretching from Jamestown to Newport. Okay, and prior to 1969, before this bridge was completed, commuters had to take a ferry to cross Narragansett Bay, back and forth, back and forth. And you can imagine Newport Harbor and Narragansett Bay during the winter when the waves were choppy. You can imagine how difficult that may have been or how uncomfortable that may have been. I sure hope they had Dramamine back then. We'll see. But back in the year 1980, the Newport Bridge was the site of the very first marathon. It was the very first time that they ever allowed runners on the bridge. Okay, they closed off traffic and they allowed runners to run across the bridge in either direction. Then came 1981. They had what was called the Citizens Bank Newport Bridge Run. That was only the second time they allowed runners on the bridge. They haven't had one since. They only do it ever so often because that bridge only has 2 lanes going and 2 lanes coming. So it's not like the George Washington Bridge in New York or other bridges where you have multiple lanes. But that's the only artery in and out of Newport, the Newport Bridge. Today it's named the Claiborne-Pell Bridge, named after Congressman Claiborne Pell from Rhode Island. He passed away a few years ago. So that's the Newport Bridge for you. Some quick factoids about Newport, and this is my favorite page. The Torah Synagogue right here is the oldest synagogue in North America. It was built in the year 1763, and it houses the oldest Torah in all of North America. The very first British troops sent from England at the beginning of the Revolution, they landed in Newport. Pelham Street in Newport was the very first street in the country to have gas-illuminated lights. The Redwood Library and Athenaeum in Newport, which is on Bellevue Avenue across from the Hotel Viking, I'll show that to you a little later, is the oldest library building in the U.S. I'll show that to you later. The very first circus in the United States was held in Newport in the year 1774. And here is my personal favorite, last but not least. Judge Darius Baker imposed the very first jail sentence for speeding in an automobile on August 28th, 1904. So easy on the pedal, folks. Okay? But I'll let you know about one thing. Some of the streets in Newport, yes, they are steep, and they do have hairpin turns. Some of them do. So I said, be careful when you're driving. Okay, so I do support Judge Baker on that. Okay, so easy on the speeding. And so that is your Torah Synagogue. That's on Torah Avenue as you're heading from downtown Newport up to Bellevue Avenue. Okay, let's get on to some of the summer cottages, what Newport's all known about. Okay. King's Cote, which is French for King's Cottage, is a landmark of the Gothic Revival style in American architecture. It marked the very beginning of the cottage boom that would distinguish the town as a venerable laboratory for the design of picturesque houses throughout the 19th century. There is a score of them in Newport. They're all designed in various different motifs, depending on what the family wanted and how they wanted to flaunt their riches and flaunt their lifestyle. In the year 1839, Southern planter George Noble Jones commissioned architect Richard Upjohn to design a summer cottage along a country road, which is Bellevue Avenue known today, on the outskirts of town. An original cottage orn, as it was called, or an ornamental cottage in a Gothic Revival style. If you look at the windows, it's designed to have that very cold looking, that creepy looking. When you think Gothic, you think like vampires and so forth, Gothic. Okay, Gothic Revival. In other words, bringing it back. Okay, this remained in the King family until the year 1972, and the very last family descendant left it to the Newport Preservation Society. Okay, and today it's a National Historic Landmark. It's a rare example of the Gothic Revival house family, and in its landscape setting was preserved intact with original family collections and all their possessions. When you go into this house, you're going to see scores of bookcases all over the place, and all the books are covered up by plexiglass. we're talking books that are more than 150 years old, dating back to 1839. So the tour guides, they want you to just keep your fingertips off the books because it could disturb the artifacts. So it's very delicate stuff inside this house. Now this is the Isaac Bell house. This is just a few blocks down the street. It's one of the best surviving examples of what's called shingle-style architecture. The house was designed by the firm McKim, Mead, and White in the year 1883 for Isaac Bell, and he was a wealthy cotton broker and an investor. It was purchased by the Preservation Society in 1996 and now a National Historic Landmark. This was a combination of Old English and European architecture, a hybrid, okay, the two coming together, with colonial American exotic details, even a Japanese-inspired open floor plan. If you walk into any normal house, you have to walk through a whole lot of hallways, doorways, and so forth. Not this place. It's very widespread, very open, so you can walk from one room to another without even trying to figure out how to get from one spot to another. If you walk into one of those houses in the Japanese, God bless you. If you go into any Japanese home in the Far East, that's how those homes are designed, to walk freely from one side to another, one room to another. Okay? And also, they have bamboo-style porch columns. This house has these twist-like columns surrounding the entire home, all around the porch area, right in the front. Okay? So now you're wondering, where are all these houses open during the entire season or year-round? During the early spring, most of the houses are closed for what you call it, restoration purposes, or even upkeep before the actual season kicks off. Okay, but last April, I was able to go to Kings Cote. I was able to go into the Elms, Marble House, the Breakers, Chateau Sur-Mer. Oh, there was a handful open. Now, there's a one mansion ticket that you can buy for $15. And then there's a 3 mansion ticket, which you can buy for $25. And then there's a 5 mansion ticket that you can buy for $35. Okay, so you buy that ticket, and if you get the 3 or the 5, they just scan the ticket when you walk in, and they know how many more mansions you have left on their ticket there, unless you do the 1. But the $35 is a good deal if you're doing some mansion hopping. Okay, so that's Isaac Bell House for you. This is Sheepstow. This is located on the corner of Bellevue Avenue and Narragansett Avenue, just blocks before South Virginia University. Okay, it was built in the year 1860 as an early summer cottage, commissioned by Edmund Schermerhorn, built by George Champlin Mason Sr. In the year 1911, Sheepstow was sold to the Morris Gallatin family. So they took over this house from them. The property remained in the Morris Gallatin family until the year 1986, donated to the Historical Society that year. Highly evocative of the taste and collections of descendant of one of America's founding families. If you walk into this house, it's very European, very ornate, very, I should say, very elegant, even very intimate. So that's the kind of motif that many of these families liked. And also, many of the families who built these homes, they were of European descent. So the lifestyle that their family descendants in France or Britain, okay, the lifestyles that they knew is what they wanted to replicate here in these mansions. You're going to see that in the mansions as well, not just these smaller houses. Okay, moving on to the big boys. This is the Elms, everybody. The summer residence of Mr. and Mrs. Edward Julius Berwin of Philadelphia and New York City. Mr. Berwyn made his fortune in the coal industry. In the year 1898, the Berwyns engaged Philadelphia architect Horace Trumbauer to design a house modeled after the mid-18th century French Chateau d'Asner, which was built in the year 1750 near Paris. This was built in 1901 at only $1.4 million at the time. The interiors and the furnishings were designed by Allard & Sons of Paris, and the setting for the Berwyn's collection of Renaissance ceramics. So you're going to see ceramic everywhere you go in this place. Okay? Along with the 18th century French and Venetian paintings, you're going to see plenty of those, and ornamental jades, oriental jades. When you walk into a house and you see those folding walls that you change behind, those are oriental jades. Very far eastern look with all the far eastern landscapes knitted on them. Very welcoming, very intimate looking. So those are the oriental jades that I'm referring to. Now, the elms was very close to being demolished in the year 1962. Okay? And by that time, the gilded age, that get-rich society, that get-rich lifestyle was long gone. So many of the mansions, those families that were in those mansions, they sold them off to other families. They were no longer needed. That money was not as prevalent as they once had. Okay, so the Elms was nearly doomed to be demolished. So it was purchased by the Newport Society in 1962. It was restored and reopened to the public in 1996, now a National Historic Landmark. Okay, so this is very near Isaac Bell House and King's Coat, so just down the block. So that's the Elms there. Here's Chateau-sur-Mer. This is just up the hill from Salvador University, right along Bellevue Avenue. It was a landmark of high Victorian architecture, furniture, wallpaper, ceramics, and stenciling. Walk into this house, you're going to be surrounded by ceramics and very delicate decoration. The stenciling and the wallpapering is all covered up by plexiglass, just that the visitors do not touch it, because it's that delicate. We're talking 1850s here. So the tour guide.
Like that house on the movie Psycho.
The Bates Hotel.
Yes.
You read my mind.
The Bates Hotel.
Yeah, the Bates Hotel looks just like that. But see, this mansion, when it was built, it didn't look like this. It was only 2 stories. Okay, it was added on to. The addition was the 3rd story, along with the cupola, that cup at the top. Well, in that 3rd story, they added a stained glass window inside a skylight. So it was a stained glass skylight. So when the sun comes out, it would light up the colors, and it would really make the room come to life. And it was also a rectangular corridor that we would look up, and it was a rectangular corridor. So as you were walking up the floors, you would have to walk around and around, up and around. So that was the intent, along with that skylight. Okay. This was the most palatial residence in Newport from its completion in the year 1852 until the appearance of the Vanderbilt houses, Marble House, and Breakers. Now, this was the scene of memorable entertainments from the Fête Champard, okay? The elaborate country picnic for over 2,000 guests, and that was in 1857. Can you imagine having 2,000 guests at a picnic? That is quite an attendance. That's quite an attendance. That's at least 5 acres it sits on. It's quite a chunk of land it sits on. As well as the Dupont Ballroom for Miss Edith Wetmore in 1889. Wetmore, that's another building that's on South Virginia's campus named after her. It's the Art Building. The grand scale of this building, along with the lavish parties, ushered in the Gilded Age of Newport. The ballroom was built in an Italianate-style villa for the China trade merchant William Shepherd Wetmore. There is a street in Newport right nearby Chateau St. Mary called Shepherd Avenue. Okay. Later, this mansion was purchased by the Preservation Society in the year 1969. In 2006, it was named a National Historic Landmark. Now, you can see this mansion, the back side of it, from the South Virginia campus, because right on the very back side of it is South Virginia's athletic field, Reynolds Field. Now, at night, my classmates and I used to get the creeps from this building, because if the moon was out, it would just refract right off the roof of this building. And my classmates used to run. Seriously. This, like I said, this looks like the Bates Hotel in Psycho. It was like Psycho coming back, basically. So that's Chateau St. Mary. Here is Marble House, folks. Built in the years 1888 through 1892 for Mr. and Mrs. William K. Vanderbilt. This was a social and architectural landmark that set the pace for Newport's subsequent transformation from that summer cottage kind of town to being the land of these stone palaces. Okay, you go from these little houses to these mega monsters now. Huge transformation from these little things to these big things. Okay, Mr. Vanderbilt, the grandson of Commodore Cornelius Vanderbilt, who established the family's fortune in steamships and the New York Central Railroad. Okay, don't get confused with these names. Okay, William K. Vanderbilt is the grandfather of Cornelius Vanderbilt II, who built the breakers. Okay, then you have Cornelius, the older Cornelius Vanderbilt was the son. So now you see the family lineage now. So this entire family was very well weaved into the Marble House and the breakers. Okay, so the older brother was Cornelius II. Okay, he built the breakers. Alva Vanderbilt, who was the wife, was the leading hostess in Newport society and envisioned Marble House as the temple of the arts in America. Now, the cost of this mansion was $11 million. $7 million of that went into the 500,000 cubic feet of marble in its Great Hall. You go into this building, you're surrounded by marble. It is awesome. And you just can imagine the amount of hours it took to install all that. Okay, so 11 million, 7 million of that went into the marble. And the house was designed by the architect Richard Morris Hunt. And I will mention Mr. Hunt on a few other occasions a little later, because Richard Morris Hunt was well used in his designs in these mansions. I will show you 2 other mansions where he was involved. Okay, and this mansion was inspired by the Petit Trianon of Versailles, which is located outside Paris. Commissioned by Nevada Silver Iris Teresa Ulrichs, this is Rose Cliff. Okay, was built in the year 1902. Okay, architecture was done by Stanford White, and it was modeled Rose Cliff after the Grand Trianon outside of Paris. Once again, the French kings of Versailles. This was completed in the year 1902. $2.5 million to build. Ms. Ulrichs hosted fabulous entertainments here, including having a whole variety of entertainers, including the ever so famous Harry Houdini, the famous magician Harry Houdini. Now, one summer in Newport, Teresa met Herman Ulrichs playing tennis at the Newport Casino, where the International Tennis Hall of Fame is located. There they married in the year 1890, and a year later they purchased the property where Rose Cliff is located here, and they built this grand mansion around the spot. Okay? Bought it from the historian and diplomat George Bancroft. Now, this was preserved through the generosity of the last owners, and the last private owners, actually, Mr. and Mrs. J. Edgar Monroe. And they gave the house, along with its furnishings, through an endowment to the Preservation Society in the year 1971. Now, speaking of fame and fortune, the Rosecliff Mansion was the filming spot for the Robert Redford film, The Great Gatsby. Also, how many of you ever watched the Arnold Schwarzenegger film, True Lies? Anyone? Okay, good. Well, part of that was filmed here, also at Ochre Court, where Arnold Schwarzenegger breaks into the ball in the beginning of the film. Yes, so both mansions have a share of fame in those films. Okay, so that is Rosecliff. I took this picture in April of last year. I was unable to enter it because they were using the mansion for a wedding. Yes, you can rent these places for a wedding if you could. All right, so notice there's a awning on the back end of the mansion, and they were setting up all the fancy tables and all the fancy chairs. They had to get the catering in because these mansions, they have an old-fashioned kitchen that's like dated back to 1902. You're not going to use a kitchen that's in 1902. But that's what these mansions are used for a lot of special events besides tourism. So Rosecliff is definitely one of the gems on the block. Here's my personal favorite, everybody, the Breakers. My next door neighbor, being a South Virginia student, right next door. Okay, built in the year 1893 to 1895 by Cornelius Vanderbilt II. Okay, he was the president of the New York Central Railroad. The New York Central Railroad was handed down to him from William K. Vanderbilt and Cornelius I. Okay, this was a 70-room Italian Renaissance style, 70 rooms. Okay, you go into this place, you only see the first 40. The top 4 houses another 30 rooms that were for the servants. Okay, why up on the 3rd floor? We're going to put the servants up there, so that way you're in close proximity to the family quarters, because you're going to be called by them all day long. So that's why they put the servants' quarters up on the very 3rd floor on the top story. Okay, so this was modeled after the palaces of Genoa and Torino in northern Italy. Now, Allard and Sons of Paris assisted Richard Morris Hunt with the furnishings and the fixtures, and Boston architect Ogden Codman decorated the family quarters. So he was in charge of that. The youngest daughter, Gladys, who married Count Laszlo Chenyi of Hungary, inherited the house through the mother's death in the year 1934, when the Gilded Age had long passed. So that they inherited the building through that hand down, through that connection. 1972 comes around. Newport Preservation Society purchased the house from the family heirs, and today it's a National Historic Landmark, one of the most iconic mansions in all of Newport, one of the most visited, as opposed to all the others. When you walk in here, it is a grand scale when you walk into this mansion. It is awesome, truly awesome. Now here's Ochre Court. This is the main mansion, the main building for South Virginia University. It was built in circa 1895 by Ogden Goulette. He was a banker and a real estate investor, and a very competitive yachtsman by most residents in Newport. If you're in Newport, you're going to have a boat, very likely. $4.5 million it cost to construct this building. modeled after the Chateau de France Loire Valley in the Louis XIII style architecture, designed by Richard Morris Hunt. Okay, he designed and built Belcourt Castle in Newport, the Marble House, the New York Metropolitan Museum of Art, and if you haven't, maybe you never knew, the Statue of Liberty's pedestal. Yes. Now, the Goettes were an American dynasty. They were like the American family. They were like the first family of the Gilded Age, going back in before the 19th century, going back way beyond. Okay? They were very well known for investments. That was their specialty. Then came the year 1947. The family heir, Robert Goett, donated this mansion to the Sisters of Mercy, which was the founding order of Salvage University. Okay? This was their only building to start. Okay? 1951 was their first commencement with 61 graduates, mostly all women. Okay? The two majors that made up that entire class were education and nursing. Okay. Now, in this mansion, all the classrooms, all the faculty offices, everything was all in this building alone until they added the Vinland Mansion years later in 1954. So I'll show you that on another slide. Now, every year, Oakwood Court is the hosting building to the Rhode Island Governor's Ball, which is the first weekend of December. It's a great event. Many of the students, the faculty, students are welcome to volunteer to do valet driving, to help out with the catering and so forth. And you see faculty, alumni, and so forth. It's a great event. Also, in June of every year, they have a reunion weekend, and every class has their group photo taken right at that picture, right at the center of the mansion's grand staircase. You should see what my class photo looked like. We destroyed it. My class was crazy. I can't tell you how crazy my class was. I talk about my class all the time. I said, man, were we famous? But that's the Great Hall in Oakwood Court. I tell you, when you walk in there, the acoustics are awesome. I'll tell you more about that a little later. So that's Oakwood Court. I'll show you next slide. Now, fast forwarding a couple of years, go to the 1980s, South Virginia wanted to add on to its campus. They wanted a new library, the McKillop Library on the top right there. Okay, one of the most beautiful buildings on campus. I have to tell you, it's awesome. When Salve wanted to build the McKillop Library, when they were planning out to when and where they're going to build it and how they're going to build it, the Newport Preservation Society threatened the school with a lawsuit and stating, if you want to add anything new to your campus, it has to be built with some resemblance to the historic structures around. Okay? So, if you look at this building here, see how it kind of resembles Wakehurst? That's our campus center. Okay? See, you can't really see the windows here, but they were kind of replicated at the library. And these dormers right here were replicated here. And they built the library to resemble a mansion as well. So they took all those ideas and put that into the planning of the library. So it's a beautiful building to walk into. It was my favorite to go. It was my favorite place to study. It was my favorite place to do homework. Oh, it was like home. Now here's Vinland Mansion. This was built in the year 1898, okay? And it was added to the campus in the year 1954. Now, this is the Our Lady of Mercy Chapel. This was built in the year 2010 to have some resemblance to the Vinland Mansion, now known as Macaulay Hall, named after Sister Catherine Macaulay, who was the founder of the Sisters of Mercy. the school's founding order. All right, so that's some of the historical background to how Salve is well intertwined with the historical nature in Newport, in that area. Okay, this is Seaview Terrace, or Carey Mansion, later on known. This was a dormitory building for Salve Regina, as well as housing the music department back in the 80s and 90s. This was built in 1925, one of the last mansion, the last mansion built in Newport of that era. Okay, it was built by Edson Bradley, who was a whiskey millionaire out of Washington, D.C. Now, his mansion was in Washington, D.C. in DuPont Circle. He fell in love with Newport, so he decided, I want to move up there. So he had his whole mansion in DuPont Circle dismantled, majority of it, and packed it into railroad cars and trucks, moved all the way up to Newport, and they even had to enlarge this mansion just to fit it all. So, which makes this mansion as big as it is now. Okay? This is some examples. This is the bottom floor, the bottom corridor, which was where the music department was known to be housed. It was called Cecilia Hall, named after Saint Cecilia, the patron saint of music.
Is this open to the public?
No, it's still lived in by the Carey family, by the granddaughter. Back in 1970s, Edson Bradley handed the mansion over to the Carey family out of New York City. And then it was later handed over to Salve Regina to be a dormitory building as well as a faculty office for the music department. In 2009, Salve Regina terminated its lease with the Carey family because of upkeep reasons. To keep an eye on a mansion like this, to keep it up, to be able to afford the upkeep and the maintenance and so forth, to keep it looking like that, it takes millions. So, but the Carey family was not taking good care of the place at the rate that Edson Bradley was. And as Salve Regina was becoming a more prevalent campus and more attractive campus to the Northeast, they didn't want to have a house like this looking as gloomy as it was. So for that reason, they decided to part ways with the Carey family with this mansion. But they did add other buildings to the campus. They purchased lots of other properties to make up for it. So that's Carey Mansion. I lived right next door in the little house called Seaview. Yes.
Hi, so what about the Carey Mansion today? Is it open?
It's a residence for the Carey family only.
Okay, so
It's no longer a student building.
okay. So is it on the campus?
It's still part of the campus. It's still within the surroundings, but it's no longer part of the school. So that's the whole history behind Seaview Terrace / Carey Mansion. Oh, this mansion also was a filming hotspot too. It was the filming spot for the film Stranded. It was also the filming spot for an episode of Ghost Hunters on Discovery Channel. And it was also the filming spot for the TV show back in the 60s called Dark Shadows.
Oh, no, it was not. Was it really?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
Are they all haunted?
No, not all of them. No. Carey Mansion, they believe that they had some paranormal activity, so that's why Ghost Hunters and Discovery Channel decided to do a filming there. Here's the cliff walk, everybody. This is the most famous walk in all of Newport, one of the most famous stretches of walk anywhere in the U.S., spanning 3 miles from Memorial Boulevard all the way to Ocean Drive. You can walk right past all the mansions, including Salve Regina, the Breakers, Marble House, Rose Cliff, and so forth. You can see it all just on foot. And there are 2 small hotels located right near the cliff walk called the Cliff Walk Inn, the Cliffside Inn, and the Chandler, which is a bed and breakfast. Now, during off season, it is maybe $200 a night, and during high season, like summer, fall, talking $600 a night. Well, you're paying for that ocean view. You're paying for that personal service that those two hotels are known for. Very well known for. So that's the Cliff Walk right there. I wouldn't miss out on it. Now, Newport is a city of landmarks, not just Salve, not just mansions and so forth, but lots of other downtown landmarks. You have the Opera House. This is reopening in December to the public for its 150th anniversary. I'll show you some slides on that. This is the Stone Mill, right in the middle of the heart of downtown. Not one historian, not one researcher, including myself. No one knows what the main feature or what the purpose of this structure was. No one knows what the use of it was. No one knows what the origin of it either. So it leaves a lot of, it's a mystery to every historian that walks through Newport. No one knows. But that's the Redwood Library right there. It's 3 centuries in one. The first section was built in the 18th century. The next section was built in the 19th. And then the last section was added early 20th century, 1910s, 1915. Here's the Casino Theater. This is part of the casino complex where the Tennis Hall of Fame is located. The Newport Casino Complex was built in 1900 circa that time, and it was intended to be a social club for the wealthy and the powerful. Well, the argument was, why? You had all the mansions. All those wealthy families had their own activities going on at their mansions. They had all the parties and so forth. Even at the Breakers, long after the Gilded Age and all those parties and all the lavish events they had at that mansion, the older children, the grandchildren, were using the serving trays as sleds to go down the stairs. So they were getting very creative with that. They were using the trays as snow sleds too. So things found a new reason, a new use in those later years. So the Casino Theater fell into disrepair, and the casino complex was doomed to be demolished in the 1950s. And then the Tennis Hall of Fame came around, and it was established in 1954, and it saved the casino complex from being torn down. In the year 2009, Salve Regina University restored the Casino Theater with $5 million, and they not only restore it, they now manage it and they maintain it. So they have lots of major theatrical and music events there, including theater performances. Last year I went to see Spring Awakening at the Casino Theater. This year they had Little Shop of Horrors. They've even had Urinetown there. They do a lot more musicals, not just straight shows, which I was used to back in the day. So those are some of the other city landmarks. But here's more on the Opera House. The Opera House was built in the year 1867, commissioned by P.C. Shanahan, and it hosted performers such as Douglas Fairbanks, John Barrymore, who was the great-grandfather of Drew Barrymore, and then you have Mary Pickford. Well, come the year 1929, the golden age of cinema was coming around. Live theater was starting to fizzle off a bit. The theater's owner, Harry Horgan, decided to convert part of the theater into a functioning movie house. So it was part live action and part movie house. That was until 1979. And then in 1979, they decided to convert the entire theater into a movie theater, strictly. And it really fell into disrepair from that point on. You want to see what the Opera House looked like from 1979 to 2010? This. This is what I was used to for 4 years. Okay. Also, the very first movie that was shown at the Opera House, okay, in 1929 was called Sunny Side Up. Anyone remember that movie, Sunny Side Up? Okay. But that was the very first film that they showed at the Opera House after they had converted to part movie theater and part live action performing center. So this is the Opera House from 1979 to 2010. Now it's being converted back to its former glory as a full function performing arts center. So it's going to be the centerpiece of town once again. No longer a disregarded movie theater. And that covered up all that beautiful brick fascia that the theater was known for. It was sad to see that, but the last time I was ever in that theater, I went to see The Grinch with Jim Carrey, December 2000. This is Fort Adams. This is right on the mouth of the Newport Harbor Channel. Okay, built in the year 1790. Okay, it was named after John Quincy Adams, who was instrumental for the starting of the War of 1812. This fort is guarded by more than 200 guns. 100 of them have 50-pound cannonballs. The others have 40-pound cannonballs. The smallest ones are 30-pounders. Okay? Now, this fort was active throughout 5 major wars, from the War of 1812 to the Civil War, even the Mexican-American War, World War I, and World War II. Okay? Now it is the yearly hosting site for one major event every July. And that's the Newport Jazz Festival. It takes place on the very front lawn of the fort. This is it's the last July, it's the very last weekend of July, every summer. And it features a whole wide range of jazz performers around the entire jazz world. Some examples are Joey Alexander, who is the youngest jazz performer to win a Grammy Award. 12 years old. 12. And that's Chick Corea. He's also performed at the Newport Jazz Festival. So if you wish to go to the Jazz Festival, you can go to newportjazzfest.org, or, the jazz station in Newark called WBGO. Go to WBGO.org, and you can get tickets from there too. So it's a great event to be part of. This is the International Tennis Hall of Fame. It's committed to preserving tennis history and celebrating the champions of the game. This summer, the inductees of the class of 2017 are Andy Roddick, Kim Clijsters, Monique Kalkman-Van Bosch, Steve Flink, who is a tennis journalist, and Vic Braden, who was a tennis instructor and trainer. What was so important about him was he was the very first ever, the very first to implement sports science with his instruction. Very first ever to do so. So that's coming up July 22nd of this summer. So they will be the next ones inducted. This is the newest addition to all the city landmarks. This is the Audrain Automobile Museum. This once housed an insurance agency and an art gallery where you purchase priceless pieces of art. Well, this building was gutted out completely and converted into this automobile museum. If you're at Automobile Classics, this is your place to go.
Where is that?
This is the Audrain Automobile Museum on Bellevue Avenue, right near the mansions. Okay? More than 200 automobiles and automobile artifacts are in this building alone.
What year do they start with?
Turn of the century all the way till now. Okay? So the admission is very, very fair. It's $14 for adults, $10 for children, and if you are a member, free. Okay, so that's right on Bellevue Avenue, just before you get to the mansions. Now, when you get to Newport during the winter, there's lots to do still. Newport is a city of great things to do, and it's a city for all seasons, I would call it. There's always a handful of mansions that they decorate for the Christmas season. Okay, that's the Marble House decorated for Christmas. Okay, sometimes the Breakers is decorated. Sometimes the Rose Cliff will be decorated. Just go to newportmansions.org. They'll tell you exactly which mansions are available to check out during Christmas time. Now, at Salve Regina University at Ochre Court in the Great Hall, every the second weekend of December, they have their chorus concert, and it is something not to miss because the acoustics in the Great Hall are stupendous. How the voices are amplified throughout that room is glorious. It's unbelievable. It's not to miss. It's a Friday night and a Saturday night. Christmas, it's the only concert that they do that's only 2 nights. It's an awesome experience. I was on chorus all 4 years. It was really special. And the chorus director is Donald St. Jean. I know him personally, great person, down-to-earth guy. Love him. So, moving on, trying to finish up here. This is the Newport-Narragansett Bay Railroad. It's one of the most historic railroads in the Northeast. Okay, it offers the entire family the chance of a lifetime to experience classic railroad travel and a dining experience in vintage era passenger cars. Okay, you get to see how Newport, how the railroad itself became, how the railroad made Newport such an iconic tourist attraction. Now, there are 2 train rides. You have an adult train ride, which is 2 hours, and it's a formal 5-course dinner, okay? And then you have a children's ride with conductor Calfus, okay, a 45-minute afternoon ride. So just go to newporttainsri.com, and it tells you exactly how to get tickets and tells you more about those 2 train rides themselves.
How much they are?
I'm not sure. They change a lot. Okay, so that's the Newport and Narragansett Bay Railroad. That's right on Bellevue Ave. That's right on America's Cup Boulevard, directly across from the Newport Marriott, right as you enter town. Okay, speaking of restaurants, lots to choose from. These are my personal favorites. You have Nicolas, great pizza, and they get the best wings in town. Sardella's, great Italian menu. Fantastic. You'll never go wrong when you go there. It's beautiful. Then you have LaForge Restaurant that sits right directly next door to the Tennis Hall of Fame. And if you go there, ask to be seated in the porch area. That way you have a gaping view of the grass court there. This is Brick Alley Pub. Great menu here. Oh, it's like TGI Fridays of Newport. It's awesome. So much to choose from. Great menu there. Then you have Red Parrot. If you're into seafood, great seafood selections there. All right, so those are your good restaurant selections if you're going to Newport.
Do you know anything about the Lurin restaurant?
No, fortunately not. Sorry about that. Now, if you wish to stay at any hotels, these are my favorite 4 right here. The Newport Marriott, which is right on America's Cup Boulevard, right next door to the Newport Narragansett Bay Railroad Station, and also the Newport Gateway Transportation Center. Hyatt Regency, that's on Goat Island, just a few blocks back from the Marriott. It sits right on Goat Island with a beautiful view of Newport Bridge. Can't miss it. It's beautiful. Jailhouse Inn. Oh, this one's funny. This used to be the old Newport County Jail, okay? And I stayed here back in 2007. And one of my college classmates was the assistant director of residence at Salve once. And he asked me on that trip, he asked me, where am I staying? I said, Jailhouse Inn. And he said, oh, how appropriate. So that's Jailhouse Inn. But it's a very nice hotel. They have a continental breakfast every day, even scones and tea during the afternoon. This is the Hotel Viking. This is my personal favorite, top of the list. Okay? It's a National Historic Landmark, a city landmark, and the rooms are truly glorious. Awesome. Okay? So, the Viking is just blocks away from the mansions, easy walking distance. All right? So, those are the 4 best. Now, moving on, just want to finish up. If you're looking for transportation, how to get around, how to get to and from, the Newport Gateway Center, that is the transportation hub in Newport. If you wish to get to the mansions and check and walk around Salve, easy. Hop on what's called the RIPTA trolley. That trolley departs from the Gateway Center. It's $2 per person per ride, which is a good deal. Okay, and that takes you all the way up past the mansions, through Salve Regina, and then it terminates at the Marble House and turns back around, heads back the same exact route. This is the Kingston train station. This is the Amtrak station. Okay, this is a Northeast regional station only, not the Acela. But wait a second. If you are taking the train to Kingston, there's not a single day that you will not miss the Acela train. When that train races through at 150 miles an hour, it's a show. If you have not seen the Acela race by at full speed, it is a show to watch. If you got a camera, you better keep it rolling, okay? Because that thing blows by like a speeding bullet. It's awesome to watch. It's fun to watch. I've been a railroad fanatic ever since I was 2. Okay, so now how much does it cost to get from Kingston to Newport? Big regular cab, it's $40 at the least, $60 at the most. But, however, if you have Uber on your phone, okay, if you have the Uber app, you'll save yourself a significant amount of money, at least 10 at the most. So you're not spending so much as the tourists are paying for a taxi cab. Because those taxi cabs, they're charging tourist rate year-round. There's no reason why you should. So if you have the Uber account on your phone, you're good to go. All right, so that's your transportation right there. All right, so just to wrap up, I have other presentations which I hope to do here in the near future. I have my Hawaii presentation, which I've done once and everybody loved it very much. I have my Puerto Rico lecture, U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Martin. Even I have a new one on Barbados, which I'm just finishing up at the moment. I also have my cruising presentation if you are a first-time or minimally experienced cruiser. Or I even have my other presentation on Disney World, even on the Jersey Shore. So they're all good ones, which I've done in the past. Yes?
Here you mentioned anything about the beach there.
Easton's Beach is the best beach in town. It's located right near the cliff walk. Right on the... Right, what's that?
Are they public beaches?
Yes, Easton Beach is a public beach. Okay, so thank you so much, everybody, for coming out. I hope to be back here sometime soon. So keep an eye on my website, dektraveljournal.com. I have my lecture schedule there, so whenever I'm lecturing anywhere, I will post it there. And if you're not on my newsletter list, please do so. Hope to see you all soon. Thank you so much, everybody.